Hello, this is a 1988 90 horsepower Johnson that I've been working on. Plan for this video is to tackle the lower unit. Now, the carburetors aren't on it right now for another reason, but first thing I want to do is disconnect the shift pin. This is a newer model, so it doesn't use a screw below the carburetors. It uses a little I don't know, cotter pin, I guess you call it. So it slides out just like so. There it is. Now we can pull this forward. At least we should be able to. Maybe I push it in. Yeah, I push it in. So, got the camera on there. I'm going to go give it a little tap, tap, tapping. That should disconnect the shift rod, which it didn't, but a little push on the shift rod. Nothing going easy down here. Let's get some PB Blaster inside of our moving parts. Push the rod back in. Back out. Okay, now we're nice and unseized. Now I can get the top screwdriver onto the rod, and the rod is free. I know you didn't see any of that, but hold on. This gives you a better idea of what I was doing. See that shift rod right there? That little pin goes into it. So all I did was push this in, which opened it up. See, it was like that. Push it in. See, the shift rod is still a little hung up on it. So all I did was get in there, a little flathead, move it out of there, and it's free. Got to get the outboard up in the air now. Do that. Use a little jumper wire that I can't find. All right, got it. Going to jump the red to the blue on our connector here. Now I'm going to go hook up the battery cables again. Put the safety down, just in case. Now, this looks like some kind of vintage hose flusher. I could be wrong. You know, honestly, it doesn't really seem that bad. It could also be homemade. But since it's stamped and then pressed in there, I doubt it. In fact, it's actually got some writing on it. What is this thing? It's a Test It Flush Tight. Never heard of it, but I'll hang on to it. Well, let's pull the propeller off. Do I really need to pull the propeller off? Probably not. So why am I? Well, make it a lot easier to get to the bolts. And if there's any fishing line or anything weird going on inside of there, I'd like to know about it. Propeller, hardware, everything's coming right out. That's a good sign. Propeller is also quite heavy. Don't think it's an aluminum. Feels like stainless. Looks like stainless. Sure weighs as much. All right. Off to a good start here. Now that impact wrench isn't very strong. It's only a 3/8, not my 1/2 inch. Both threads are fine, but these little things, I don't know, they're like desert bees or something, but keep finding little critter nests in my outboards. At least the ones I pick up locally, and they stink. So, don't quite know what that's about, but let's hope there's none in the water pump area. Mainly the water pickup. It's usually where I've been finding them. And that is a problem because it may clog or restrict water flow, which is not something that you want. I already took off the bolt on the other side. I'm really hoping we don't have a bunch of critters or weird things inside of here. Pretty nice engine. All four out. Lower has not moved yet. There we go. Pretty nice inside of there. Pretty clean, actually. Let's get this boot. Don't want to drop it, but just slide it right there. Okay, I've already loosened the drain screw and the vent, so I'm going to pop those out. See how our oil looks. Oil first. Look at that. That's rare. Yeah, we'll let it drain, see if water follows, but that looks pretty good. So that looks pretty good. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that our drive shaft isn't leaking. There's a good chance that it's not, but there's also a good chance that the owner drained any and all water out of it before I went over there and bought the motor, should I pop this open and look. So that's one possibility. The second possibility, it's 12 years ago when they last used this motor, it wasn't leaking. Time has passed, seals have gone bad, now it's leaking. Put the bottom screw back in and I'll hook up my pressure tester. We will pressure test this thing, and if that shows it's not leaking, then we're good. Alright, I have a Stevens S34 pressure testing pump, which I will use for this. I want to get the V34 as well, because you should do a pressure and a vacuum check, but money has prevented me from doing that. These things ain't cheap. Let's go ahead and pump this guy up. Let it set at 15 for a while, see if it drops. We have a O-ring at the top of the drive shaft. I need to carefully remove that because I don't know if I bought a spare. I might wind up reusing this one. So we'll slide that right there for now. Water pump screws are removed. Out comes our water pump impeller housing and all. Water pump looks quite nice. Probably didn't need to do this. However, with any new to you motor, you should do this. People selling stuff aren't always the most honest of people. Usually it's, that works perfect, no issues there, just changed it. You know the usual stories. However, this thing does look pretty nice. Alright, upon examination, they don't spring back to where they should, and not much life left in those vanes. Yeah, you could probably use it for a little while. But you lose that, it's clogging something. So it needed a new one. Let's clean up the gasket surface a bit. All right, here is our new water pump kit for this. As you can see, it's an OEM. One of the reasons I really like Evinrude is as time goes on, things still get developed better, instructions improve, items and materials usually improve, and the instruction panel with this thing is no different. This thing is much nicer than the ones I've used previously. A little more detailed, however, some parts a little less detailed. Allow me to show you. Gives you a little bit of instructions here. Apply a drop of adhesive 847 into the seal ring groove at each end of the 4 ribs. Do not allow an adhesive to get in the air bleed groove in the impeller housing. And then it shows you, 1, 2, 2, 3. Well, which is which? Usually it would say do not allow any adhesive to get into the air bleed groove, and they would have a little 3 in parentheses showing that is the air bleed groove. That's been removed. That should have been in there. Ink. Well, that's not ink. I'm sure that's laser. Isn't that expensive? They should have added that little in there just for the people that haven't done one before that don't know what that is. But anyway, I digress. So this video, you don't really need to watch. You can learn everything you're doing by reading the instructions that came in the kit. Unless you didn't buy an Evinrude kit, if you bought one of the aftermarket kits, then go ahead and watch this video because you're going to need it because they're too cheap to include instructions. Evinrude, usually not the case. Now, that isn't the case for all water pump kits, but the more expensive ones, yeah. Like, for whatever reason, the 40, 48, 50 horsepower engines, no instructions in those. It says to read the manual. So, I don't know. I guess sometimes you get lucky. But either way, it's a good kit. Link below. All right, our kit comes with 2 O-rings. One that is way too big for the impeller, and one that fits it perfectly. So this is the one we need for our housing. Okay, it actually came with 3. I'm guessing this is the drive shaft one, luckily, because, like I said, I didn't get a spare. All right, got some of the 847 as called for in the instructions. This used to be called Sealant M, I believe, but they recently got away with that, so that's good. And it naturally pours right out of there, which is why they warn you not to get any in that bleed hole, because this stuff goes everywhere right when you open the cap. And then it instantly dries. It's kind of interesting stuff. So that's why, like I said, I think that's why they warn you not to get any inside of there, because I think they know it's going everywhere. So I have it on the 4 corners and none inside of there. That's the little self-priming little hole, let's call it that. So that'll hold in our O-ring. Now it says to install gasket sealing compound to the outer rim of the cup. I don't know why not the whole rim. Oh, I'm not going in order here, by the way, but they didn't either, so. Yeah, that's the outer rim if I've ever seen it, huh? All right, install our cup into our housing. Looks good to me. Down inside of our kit, we have our new plate and our new plate gasket. Both sides of our gasket is getting covered in the gasket sealing compound. Hopefully I can figure out which way this goes on. Yeah, I'd say that's it. All right. And then our plate can go on. Now it wants us to lightly coat the inside of that impeller cup with triple guard grease. Now some things are going to say to use 2-stroke oil. You'll see a lot of people saying to use dish soap. I really have no preference. I've pretty much done everything. I pretty much just use what, if the instructions say what to use, I'll use it. If they don't, I use whatever is closest. Dish soap, oil, I don't care. In this case, triple guard grease. Now, there is a little lip on the inside of the impeller housing and nothing on this one. It's going in this way. We're going to rotate it counterclockwise, well, forcing the impeller in there best we can until we get this stupid thing in there. There, perfect. First try. Line the hole up best you can. All right, rotating it. So this is down, nice and centered. So that way I have this flat spot in the drive shaft basting back. This will go in like so over the drive shaft. Those should be nice and aligned. Okay, I'm going to put triple guard grease onto the O-ring for the impeller housing. Slide it onto our drive shaft. Right about there. Put a little dab of it on the back of our impeller key. Impeller key goes in that way so it's flush turning, flat spot right there. Slide the impeller key and O-ring over each other to kind of hold it for us. At least that's the theory. All right, we have the inner little water tube. I'm going to put some triple guard grease on there for safe measure. It says you only have to do this if you have the 5/8 diameter water tube. But here's the thing. Is it going to hurt anything? No. Is it going to help? Well, probably. Therefore, it's going in there. Okay, now that thing goes there. Also, it has a little taper. Taper goes up. Don't know if I mentioned that. Screws. Get triple guard grease. Probably helps prevent them from seizing into the brass little inserts. Need our 847 again. Going on to the bottom / flat side of this grommet, which thing gets installed over the drive shaft little tube, just like so. All right, I have test fit this weird shaped O-ring inside of there. Gonna set it down right as it's going in. The 347 is going into the groove. Just need a little bit because stuff's going to run everywhere anyway. All right. 847 is applied. Cap is lost. It's an expensive tube, by the way. Take care of that stuff. Put our O-ring on. Now let's slide it on, down over the drive shaft. Hope the key goes right on. Okay, ideal. Never happens though. Oh, look at that. First try. All right, attaching screws. You're going to use some triple guard gasket sealing compound rather onto the threads. Make sure they don't lock in there on you. We got new shift rod seal gasket thing. Let's pop the old one out of there. Put on a new one. We also have the new O-ring for the drive shaft. Probably put some grease on here just cause. Kit also came with some moly lube. I'm gonna put that onto the drive shaft splines. Just on the sides, not on the top. This will prevent the drive shaft from seizing itself in there. Should salt water or rust or time be something that you have in your area. And we're still holding good right at 15 psi, so I'd say we're good. All right, I have a bolt pre-dipped with gasket sealing compound standing by. Just need one. This Italy-shaped boot thing. Put that back in. Nothing worse than putting your lower unit back on, looking over your bench and seeing that thing sitting there. Let's get the lower unit back installed. We might need to rotate the drive shaft for this since we turned it. There's a water pump install, but with any luck it'll go right back in, but it never does. You want to make sure that your water pump is copper tube thing inside of there is aligned with the hole. You slide it in. Okay. Now the boot shouldn't give us any problems. Water pump tube is in, as is the lower. Now, if you've seen me do one of these before, you probably know I always talk about the gasket compound on all the screws. No different here. Every one of them is getting it. Well, anywho, no reason to show you. Make sure you're tightening all these back down, so we'll go through it and show you our next step. No fishing line or anything in there, so nothing needs to be done there. All right, grease on yield propeller shaft. Splines and all. Oh yeah, that ain't going on. Look at that. Good luck rusting on their propeller. All right. Little propeller base adapter plate thing first. God, this thing is heavy. Cast iron propeller next. Plastic little propeller spacer. And our castle nut. Get a new cotter pin from the store in a bit. All right, I've already put a cotter pin into the propeller. I got some gear oil and a gear pump. If you've never done this before, get comfortable because it takes forever. All right, bottle is almost empty, so we should almost be there, but we may need another bottle too. Hey, there we go, one bottle. Now we need to get the shift rod back in, and that is probably going to be a little challenging because it's on a weird little angle back there. We didn't turn it, we didn't mess with it, but going back in, just a little different. So there it is, right there. I'm going to use my pick to push it over, bring it closer to me if I can. There we go. Perfect. Except this bushing over here didn't make its way back in, so need to push that in. Now we just need to find our little pinhole. So clip went in from the other side. Let me shift forward, get a little more room for it. There it is, right up top. I know you can't see what I'm doing. Maybe I can move the camera a bit. Yeah, now you can see. See, I got it in there. Push it in a little more. Now the washer on the back, since it's a little spring-loaded washer, it's going to give me a little bit of troubles. Got it. And that's all there is to it. Now, since the gears are in sync right now, that's why you can shift. If they wouldn't, all I would have to do is rotate the flywheel until everything lined up, and then you can shift it by hand. That shifts fine. Don't have a puddle down there, so should be it for our water pump. And as you can see, everything is easier with the carburetors removed, so if you're doing the carburetors, you might as well do the water pump too. Okay, next video on this should be the carburetors, so I will see y'all then.